There's a call for help tonight from a Canadian man who came to this country as a refugee and found himself behind bars in Egypt, accused of espionage. Without friends or family to champion his cause, Joseph Attar has been largely forgotten. Now, in a series of letters, he alleges Egyptian authorities have tortured him, and he's begging the Canadian government for help. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief Mercedes Stephenson has this story.
This is Joseph Attar in 2007. It was the last time he was seen in public, proclaiming his innocence, before he was locked up in a notorious Egyptian prison. Accused of being an Israeli spy by the Egyptian government, Attar did confess, but in court shouted out the confession was extracted under torture.
Immediately, all sorts of flags from a human rights perspective.
Senior Canadian government and intelligence officials told Global News Attar is no undercover operative. Former Deputy Director of CSIS, Andy Ellis, has personally taken up his case.
There is no truth to the allegations that he was working for the Israelis or working for anyone else.
Officials believe Attar was targeted over his beliefs and his conversion to Christianity.
It's a tragedy. It's a Canadian tragedy.
In a highly unusual move, CSIS, Canada's intelligence agency, approached Amnesty International, encouraging them to take on Attar's case. Years later, nothing has changed, and Attar is issuing a cry out loud from the prison, condemning the silence of the Canadian government on my torture, he says, in letters penned from prison obtained by Global News. What is happening here is against all human rights charters, Attar says.
He was forced to drink his own urine. He was tortured very severely.
The mistreatment has continued, that the prison conditions have been very, very hard for him to endure.
Yes, ma'am.
Majed El-Shafi is the Toronto church leader who Attar has been writing to.
He is asking for help. He's in a very dark spot, and he's simply asking for help.
Attar is not alone. Government memos obtained by Global News reveal over 24 Canadians detained in foreign countries have made credible allegations of torture to the federal government since 2014.
The Canadian government needs to make this case a top priority, and that means for Minister Champagne, that means for the Prime Minister.
Canadian government sources say they are pushing hard behind the scenes for Attar's freedom and have been doing so for years. But there is no sense that Egyptian authorities are open to releasing him before the end of his sentence or even possibly after it. But they hope that having his case raised in public may help Attar in the future. Mercedes Stephenson, Global News, Ottawa.